Hello everybody, back here for a little start of a shelf build. I'm building some, I guess, cabinet slash shelving for some extra storage from Overstock for eBay packing, all that kind of stuff. What I have, what I'm building this out of, I guess, is for the center section of the shelving unit is 1/2-inch birch plywood, 4x8 sheets. I already have, I don't know if you can really see down at the end, I already got the one sheet ripped in half. I'm building it virtually 24 inches deep and about 7 foot tall. That's what's going to work out good. We wanted it 27 inches deep, but I didn't want to waste all the extra money on plywood and that just for an extra 3 inches. So I decided to rip them in half, and of course they're going to come up slightly sly of 24 inches because you're taking the width of a blade out. So my plan is to use the factory straighter edge as my fronts in that, kind of hide the wavier. My table saw is kind of a crappy table saw, and it just kind of gets a little bit untrue going through there. I've got no in-feed table, and my out-feed table is a couple crappy sawhorses, which actually I'm going to go out there and show you. A couple crappy sawhorses out here on uneven driveway and that. But what I have up underneath there is two 2x4 screwed to it and a 1/2-inch thick board. Then on top of that is a 1/2-inch particle board. Then the other 1/2-inch birch plywood. That the one half has been cut in half already, and you can see that down here. It's already been cut. What happened now is, though, because with the table saw being 8 feet away, I asked my wife to come give me a hand. I plugged it into the breaker, into an extension cord, and I had the power on, and then I told her just to go ahead and flip the breaker switch up, and then if something went wrong or something like that and stuff, she went breaker was turn off, or if I yelled at her, turned off at the end, whatever. Once I cut the board in half, I could then turn the power off myself. I got, as you can see, this close to the end of the cut, and I heard the blade start to dull down, or just really cut, bogged down for a moment, so I thought I was turning the board. I was still dead in the line, didn't know what was going on, and the blade came to a complete stop. I look up, and my wife was resting her hand on the breaker and flipped the breaker. So now I have the hassle factor of that really crappy, uneasy feeling of starting a table saw with the blade still in it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll see how it turns out. Well, I'm back here. I got ahead and got that piece ripped the rest of the way in half. Worked out just fine. Wasn't really a big deal at all. I just backed it off a little bit once the blades weren't touching. Kicked the motor on real fast and ran it on through. So anyway, what I'm doing here at this moment is trying to straighten up this edge. The cabinet's going to be 7 foot tall. This one's obviously 8 foot long boards. And I don't have the in-feed table or out-feed table set up to be able to rip across an 8 foot long piece to rip the 2 foot piece off. So what I done is I cut it real quick with just my crappy little Black & Decker jigsaw there, skill saw, whatever you want to call it, and doesn't leave a very good edge at all. So I decided to set up here. This is actually just a T-style handle, if we can see kind of what it looks like there. Got a couple clamps on it, and what I done is I set it up for my router. So I've got a Ryobi 1 3/4 horse peak. It's actually a plunge router, works real well. And as you can see on there, you got a straight cutoff bit, nothing big deal. But the first cut, if you notice right here in the corner, apparently the measurement is wrong compared to when it actually cuts. So I started in, did a real quick measurement, realized I was actually a little bit on, deep. And if you pull back the little bit of frilling here, you can see I've got just the ink line there left. So I'm going to hit that with my sander real fast, and it's not worth taking a second coat over it. But my sander is just a real crappy little tool shop style little palm sander, quarter sheet. I'm going to knock that down real fast, and then I'll be ready to move on to the next piece. Thanks for watching. Hello, back here for the next little update. My jigsaw I have is just an absolute piece of junk. The blades are bad. I don't have good blades for it. So I went ahead and decided I was going to go ahead and just cut this off the router. The last one I went ahead and just cut off all the way through in one pass, and I realized it was a lot of work on the router. Really produced a lot of heat. So this time I decided to go through, you can kind of see here, cut just a little bit shy of halfway through. And I also, as you can see, clearly left myself a little bit of room to the line. Once I cut it all the way the rest of the way in half, I'll then move the fence back just a smidgen, and then I'll go ahead and get it right there, true and straight. The other thing I wanted to test this with is basically I'm going to try and make some dado blade. Instead of using the actual table saw on that for it, I've never found a dado blade that actually fits my table saw. So I've decided I'm just going to use the router for it, so I kind of use this as a test pattern for that process too. All I need to do is find a bit that's the right size of my plywood, which is going to be just about impossible because almost all plywood is going to be slightly different. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and plan on make sure it's on the smaller side, cut it once, move the fence up that 1/16 of an inch, 100th of an inch, 1/8 inch, whatever the heck, how big a board I'm running. Then I'll go ahead and make my second pass and leave the height set the same, and I'll be done. So pretty much if you don't have access to a good table saw or even a good jigsaw, and I have a hand circular saw somewhere, but I have no idea where in the heck it's at. I haven't seen it in probably a dozen years, so I'm assuming I loaned it to somebody and never got it back. I might have to go out and buy me one of those, but what I'm using right now is the router. Seems to work pretty good for the process. So anyway, I'll let you know what I come up with. Thanks. Hello there. We've all heard the saying cut twice, or measure twice, cut once. So you can see here, right in that line, just dead even cut with that router. Can't beat that. Looking for 7 foot, perfectly 7 foot. Come over here to this one, which is the first board I cut. As you can see, I'm right on just a smidgen above that line. When I sand it out, it's going to be just dead on perfect, just like it is here. I've been sanding it down, and the sanding stops there. But here's the best part. What I done when I measured the first one was I measured out to 7 feet 1/4 inch. That's where I was going to cut it with my little handheld jigsaw, and the process was that would give me 1/4 inch to come back in and fix it with my router. I measured from the distance of that line, forgot about the 1/4 inch in my world, measured the line, assuming it's 7 feet, 1/4 inch, I measured from the line out to the router fence that I made out of that aluminum track, and of course it came out to be just basically 2 inches and a 1/16. So I came to the second board, measured up 7 feet, put my line right there where my ink is, measured back 2 inches and 1/16, clamped it down, and got that pretty line nice and true and straight. Can't beat it. Then I come back over here and I measure this as I'm getting ready to put a coat of paint on the inside part. I don't care if it gets marred up a little bit, but always a big believer in painting before you assemble. Makes life a lot simpler. And realize I'm now 7 feet and 1/4 inch. So luckily, hadn't got too far, but the measuring twice, which I measured twice both times, obviously, but I measured the 2 and an 1/8 inch, or 2 and a 1/16, as opposed to measuring the 7 foot part. So anyway, I'll knock 1/4 inch off of here and we'll see what happens. Hey there everybody, I'm out here working on my cabinet again, and I just had a little ground squirrel chipmunk run into my garage. I heard him scurrying on the concrete. Now he's climbing around inside my pile of wood there. Not sure if you guys can actually see him here or not. He's actually on the back side where he's not able. There he is, right by my old donut case. Part of me doesn't want to chase him out of here because I don't mind the little bugger, but a really big part of me doesn't want him, there he is, staying in here because of the fact that once I shut the doors, there's no hole big enough for him to get out, and that would suck for him. So, one, I don't want him chewing up holes in my garage to get out, and two, I guess I could leave the garage door open a ½ inch is all I need to do to get him out of here, but let's see if I can find that little booger again. I'm not sure what made him think the garage would be a good spot to come climb around the wood pile, but he's fairly brave and brazen. He was, I don't know, within about a foot of me, but I just saw a little glimpse of a shadow and heard scurrying on the concrete and saw him run right by my plasma TV there on the edge, and then I grabbed my camera, and of course now he's hiding in the pile deep enough that I can't see him. So anyway, don't know if that showed up or not, but we'll see. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm just getting ready to cut down another board, got my pen line on here, and getting ready to do my cut. You can see the one cut here go along with the router. At the very edge where it broke off, it left this little tiny odd point sticking out there. There you can see a little better. But it does a great job, and I'm cutting back against that line again, leaving the factory edge on the one piece I did. And right here you can see my test cut. to where I was measuring, making sure, lift it back on the safe side, measured the gap I was off, moved it up that about 1/16 of an inch, and then went ahead and finished cutting it through. So I am cutting these actually in 3 passes on the first one because it was actually spread out. Didn't feel like bringing out all the table saws. I've got the one table saw over there. Well, I didn't want the weight, getting all the hassle, making it perfectly level. So the heck with it and just cut it through in 3 passes. And that last little pass wasn't a big deal to rip that little tiny corner off. So anyway, I'll cut this last piece and update once I got another section done. Hello everybody, back here again for a little update on my shelf build, and going to give you a little bit of free advice here. When you clamp, this is just a piece of OSB, didn't care if it's 100% perfectly true, but the factory edge, so it's fairly straight. I cut halfway through my melamine lined 1/2 inch plywood, thought no big deal, worked great, and then went to cut the next half through, made it right down to the end, and as you can see, this is the board I was cutting off, and it fell off there because I had it on my sawhorses, and I've got some just sacrificial boards on top here. So when I cut all the way through, well, let's see here. You can see I barely just skimmed that. That's how much deeper my router was than the actual board itself. I didn't want to cut my sawhorses up, so I used that. But like an idiot, I wasn't paying attention to how close I was to center. I could have moved the board way back to here and didn't. And the back half, luckily, the one away from me fell off. Didn't hurt anything. I was able to just let it go. There was nothing underneath it except a extension cord, which didn't matter. And I might have a clamp bent, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So when you're doing this, if you're going to set that up, make sure you have some a little wider, or try and center it a little better. Or like not being an idiot, I clamped it to the 1x4 sacrificial boards, but the boards aren't clamped to the actual sawhorses. So that's where I made my mistake. Just thought I'd give you guys a little free advice there. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hello everybody, back here again to show you where I'm at in the cabinet so far. This is going to be extremely short and quick here. I've got a massive rainstorm coming in, and like an idiot, so you can see I'm out here working outside my garage because I'm still got a garage full of crap that ain't mine. So didn't have room to set this thing up. It ended up being 7 foot tall, 40 inches wide, and actually it's a little more than 40 inches wide. It's about 41 inches wide because the boards themselves, the inside shelves, are 40. So the outside is going to be a little bit wider. What I had done here was, you can see I missed with a staple. But this is just a 1/8 inch hardboard MDF, and I laid it down. The inside was the factory edge. I laid it down inside the board here. Then, in order, because I knew it's a pain in the butt to cut perfectly straight like that, I went ahead and just left the 8 foot part sticking out the top and ran my router. And if you get real close, see if we can make this focus here or not. There's actually a little tiny lip. This bottom, the actual bottom of the cabinet was sanded and painted. And then if you come on over here, there's the lip where the router hit that, and you can notice how this little groove, the flat spot right here in the paint, is actually the bearing. And then this top part here is where the blade was a little bit deeper, actually cuts in a little more than that. So it's not a big deal. Put a coat of paint on this. The hardboard hasn't been painted yet anyway, so it's not a problem there. And then on the far side, you can see here, you can kind of notice that little like darker line is where the bearing rested. And this one here, because it was the I don't know why, it didn't seem like it cut into the wood so much there. Not sure why it did more on the back than it did out here, but that's what I have. So I went ahead, in order to get the straight edge on this side, I just looped it over. There's a little bit of a gap if you look there, where this outside piece is just a smidgen bigger than this inside piece, and caused my gap there. And here it's really cut up like crazy. I wonder if there's a little bit more of an angle there that caused that, but pretty much that's what we got. And then I'll go ahead and get you another quick shot of this once I get it standing up on end and tell you a little more about it. But I got to get it inside out of before the rain hits. So thanks for watching. I'm about 99% positive that you all know what this is, but I figured I'd show you. Basically, it's a flat cutter for my router bit, and this bottom is actually a ball bearing. And that's what actually rests up against the wood, so it's going to be what they call a trim off bit. Figured I'd show you that real quick so you know what I'm talking about.